All right, let's do some application. And again, I don't like the way the textbook describes how it applies the various strategies. So let's assume that you're running a multi-domestic strategy. In this case, it would be common to use an SBU form of organizational form. And typically, those strategic business units would not be based on product, but would be based on geographic location. So you might have your SBU for Europe, your SBU for South America, your SBU for Asia, and they're responsible for tailoring the product, the manufacturing, and the marketing message to meet the needs of those local populations. You could organize a global um, strategy in either a functional strategy, or you could also do it effectively through more of a product divisional uh, strategy using the the M form sort of strategy. If you're going pure function, that would work well if you only have one or two products. And the divisional form would work well if you had multiple products, but again, they were not tailored to the individual country tastes, and you didn't have to worry as much about tailoring the market message. The transnational is a particularly challenging sort of a strategy to implement. And organizationally, this is where in the textbook it talks about the matrix form, and I agree with that. The power to go with a matrix form is going to be really strong. Uh, in the matrix form, you have to decide which entity you're going to privilege. And what I mean by that, who is the first person you go to? It could be done by geographies, is a very common way to put at the top of the chart would be the different geographies or different regions of the world. You could do it by products. You could do it by even functions as well. So this is the complicated one that people often default to the Goldilocks solution because it seems to call for that. You know, I've been in organizations in my time in the Air Force where I've lived through many of these different organizational forms. The U.S. military worldwide is organized, if you will, on a SBU format that's based on geographies. There's a Pacific region. I spent a lot of my time in the Pacific, and the headquarters was in a real hardship place to be assigned. Hawaii was never assigned to that headquarters, but we used a lot of geographic divisions. But at the same time, we also had product divisions, if you will, because as a fighter pilot, I did not necessarily have tanker pilots and tanker aerial refueling tanker organizations in the same entities, where they would be divided up in different groups. So I've lived through them all. That's how they get applied. Now what I want to do is show you a movie where the star is the lady there on your picture. Her name is Anne Mulcahy. Let me introduce her to you before we watch a clip of hers. She became the CEO of Xerox in the 2000-2001 timeframe. So I recognize that's about the time you all were born, and that seems like a long time ago. That was also a time where there was something called the dot-com crash. This is when big economic downturn. Obviously, it was exacerbated by 9/11 in September 2001. And a lot of technology problems had a lot of issues. The irony was that Ms. Mulcahy had competed to become the CEO of the company about a year prior to when she actually became the CEO, and she wasn't selected. The board didn't think she was ready. They brought in an outsider. That outsider did not work out. We'll talk about leadership transitions in the next chapter. And so they decided to turn to Ms. Mulcahy. It was awkward because she knew she didn't have the support of the board. And what she did was she did a tremendous job of turning around the company. And so I'm going to show you in the next video a clip of her talking at the Columbia Business School. The first part of the clip I include in there because she's talking about getting simplicity in business and understanding what you've got. Some of that information might be really useful to you as you think about Globus. In the middle of the clip, she talks a lot about accountability, using data, using your intuition. Although I'll caution you, your intuition isn't worth a lot in Globus. You need to be very data driven. In the end, though, she talks about her struggles of getting the organizational form at Xerox right. And that's the part that I really want you to enjoy and focus on.